All right, what's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Rogue in Diablo 4. Now, the Rogue had some changes, some nerfs actually. All imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increased. That sucks because I love Shadow Imbuement, and now we're going to be able to use it less often. Did you know, though, there's actually a trick. If you use Shadow Imbuement before you're even in combat, you can have that on, and then you go initiate combat. You can use your skill that's Shadow Imbued, and then you can use Shadow Imbuement immediately after because the cooldown actually started resetting once you initially used it when you were out of combat before. So that's a little trick for you, so you can use more imbuements more of the time, unless they changed it. The other change they made for rogues is that the upgrades for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increase, and multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased. So we're going to try to pick up some passive skills, and we're also going to take a look at some subterfuge skills as well. The first build I want to show you guys today is my absolute favorite. This is the Flurry Rogue, the Shadow Imbue Flurry Rogue. I think it's fantastic. I know everyone's all like twisting blades this, twisting blades that, but I really think Flurry is underrated. I think it's very, very strong. It's my recommendation to you, but you can do whatever you want. So this is the build. We're going to go with Invigorating Strike, and we're going to get Fundamental Invigorating Strike. If you hit an enemy while you're below 50% energy with Invigorating Strike, it makes them vulnerable. Then we're going to get Flurry, and Flurry has an improvement called Improved Flurry. If Flurry hits any vulnerable enemy, it will make all enemies hit by that cast vulnerable for 3 seconds. If you put 2 and 2 together, basically you make one guy vulnerable, then you use Flurry, then every single person you just hit with that Flurry is now vulnerable. That means 20% increased damage. Now, when you read Flurry, it says unleash a flurry of stabs and slashes, striking enemies in front of you 4 times and dealing a total of 60% damage to each, okay? That's in front of you. In Fractured Peaks, from the Forsaken Quarry, you can get the aspect of Encircling Blades. Flurry damages enemies in a circle around you and deals 8% increased damage. So 8%, big whoop, not that much. I mean, it's still decent, right? The big deal is that it damages enemies in a circle around you, which means you're just spreading vulnerability so much more, basically in an AoE, right? Literally in an AoE around your character. It's like casting Frost Nova or something around you, right? It's an AoE and in a circle. So it's fantastic. It makes Flurry really, really good, and I think it's the way to go, especially once we get Shadow Imbuement, which we'll get to. Now, some of the passives, these are all mostly defensive passives, like Sturdy, Stutter Step helps with your speed, but really what we're looking at right here is Weapon Mastery. I hope they improved this one because I like it and I wish it was a little stronger. Now, depending on what weapon you use, you're going to get a bunch of different bonuses. Daggers get 15% increased damage to healthy enemies. Swords get 9% increased damage flat, so I like swords. They're quite good. Bows, 12% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and crossbows, 15% increased critical strike damage. So crossbows are good for like a marksman build. I'd say daggers are good for builds that try to just one-shot people, right? Because they do increase damage to healthy enemies. Then bows are good for like a vulnerability build, which this build actually has a ton of vulnerability, but we're actually melee. But Weapon Mastery, I would say use swords for this build because you get 9% increased damage. So try to use 2 swords. And then we've got Shadow Step. Shadow Step is so good. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but you can use this to like get around terrain. Like if you're at the bottom of a cliff and you see an enemy at the top of the cliff, you can use Shadow Step to instantly teleport up there. It's really awesome. Shadow Step is one of my favorite abilities for the Rogue. Highly recommend for most builds because it also gives you Unstoppable. And I'm like a freaking broken record here, but whenever you get crowd controlled, you want to have an Unstoppable skill to get you back into action. You can die while crowd controlled. You can't use a potion while you're crowd controlled. Put an Unstoppable ability on your bar, and I recommend Shadow Step. And right over here we get Disciplined Shadow Step. The cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds when it damages an enemy you haven't hit with Shadow Step in the last 4 seconds. So don't just spam this ability mindlessly on the same target. Use it on one target, then use it on a different target, and then that's going to reduce the cooldown of the skill. So there you go. Now this is a level 20 build, right? So things are going to get a little wonky from here on out. Do what you want, but I think it's just theory crafting because we got the main parts of the build, but they buff subterfuge skills. It says here, upgrades for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increased. So we're going to try to get some subterfuge skills, okay? We are also going to get Dash. I like Dash a lot, but you don't have to get this. You could put it over here in some subterfuge skills. Now my personal favorite subterfuge skill is Dark Shroud. You get 5 protective shadows, 8% damage reduction per active shadow. That's 40%, right? 5 times 8. And then over here you get countering Dark Shroud. Well, you have at least 2 active shadows from Dark Shroud, gain 10% critical strike chance. 10%. That's great. So, and that's probably going to have that bonus increase based off of the beta feedback blog post. And then we're also just going to get Poison Trap. And you can move points around. Like maybe we'll get rid of Dash and we'll make Poison Trap Enhanced Poison Trap or something. Try to make it even stronger. But we'll leave Dash because we need 6 abilities. But I recommend that. Maybe try Poison Trap. Look at how much damage it does. 345.6% 6% poison damage, you know, just might as well get it. It's an extra cooldown, 10-second cooldown. But most importantly for this build is Shadow Imbuement. Now, yes, all imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increased. It's a bummer. But I gave you a little special tip in the beginning. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Shadow Imbuement, I think, is the best one. If you guys aren't familiar, it's basically going to make enemies that die, well, you hit them with Shadow Imbuement, explode, dealing 40% damage to all surrounding enemies. And if you use a skill like Flurry, where you hit everyone around you, they're all going to explode, causing this sort of instantaneous chain reaction explosion. It's very, very awesome. So AoE abilities with Shadow Imbuement is just fantastic. Highly recommend. And that's the build. And the one legendary aspect of Encircling Blades, grab that in the Forsaken Quarry. Don't forget, that's going to make Flurry really, really good. And then when it comes to the class-specific mechanic, your specialization, I always do combo points. That's what I recommend for you. You're not going to be able to use Preparation, and I personally don't think Inner Sight is that good. You get 4 seconds of unlimited energy to use, but that's like 4 seconds. You can't do much with that. So highly recommend the combo point one. All right, let's talk a little bit about the marksman build. Now, of course, you know, if you saw my rogue build guide, you know, this is going to look very similar, but we're going to do the 20-point version. So we're going to get Forceful Arrow and Fundamental Forceful Arrow to knock them back, which there's some good synergies there, but more importantly, we're going to get Penetrating Shot. This is a arrow that pierces through all enemies in a line, dealing 70% damage. Very nice. And then we're going to get Enhanced Penetrating Shot and Improved Penetrating Shot. If it damages at least 3 enemies, your next shot has 20% increased critical strike chance. That's awesome. And then we're going to put 3 points into Weapon Mastery. I recommend using a crossbow with this build for that 15% increased critical strike damage. I think that's going to be very nice with this build. And then I'm going to get Dash, and we're going to get Enhanced Dash and Disciplined Dash. This is just basically for mobility to get around. And you could absolutely use Shadow Step. It's just that Dash is more of like, you know, this is going to put you in melee range. Dash can get you out of melee range. You know, you're a ranged build. I know it doesn't give you unstoppable, but Dash is good for getting away and getting where you want your character to be, personally. And then finally, when we get to the subterfuge skills, I'm going to do the same thing with the previous build. Dark Shroud, can't go wrong with it. And then Poison Trap again for extra damage. And we're going to finish this off with Shadow Imbuement once again. And Shadow Imbuement you're going to want to use with Penetrating Shot. That's going to be beautiful. So highly recommend whatever build you go, choose Shadow Imbuement without a doubt. It's just so good. And then of course, we're going to put 1 point into Exploit to deal 6% increased damage to healthy and injured enemies. You might think, okay, what's the, you know, if it's healthy and injured, isn't that just every enemy? Well, actually, healthy is defined in Diablo 4 as enemies that have more than 85% health, and injured is enemies that have less than 35% health. And so Exploit basically is going to cause you to do more damage when you first attack an enemy and more damage when you are finishing off an enemy. But the distance between 85% and 35% health, you are going to lose this 6% increased damage. So, and guys, I don't think it's going to matter that much. Like, how often is a monster really in that middle range? Well, maybe a boss might be. But with Shadow Imbuement, you're basically going to be one-shotting a lot of enemies. So I actually think Exploit's a great ability, or I'm sorry, a really great passive to put points into, especially because in the patch notes, this skill could be better than what it says right here in the build calculator, because it says here in the notes, multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased. And so perhaps Exploit now is even better than it is here in this build calculator. But I think it's good. Even though it's a little confusing, I think it's very good, because if you one-shot an enemy, then you're getting them while they're healthy. So this is the build. Hope you guys like it. I couldn't find anything in Fractured Peaks when it comes to legendary aspects for you for this build. Again, if you want to check that, just open the build calculator, type in Fracture, and you can find some stuff for you. But nothing for this particular marksman build. You can always go to the Obol, Purveyor of Curiosity, spend your Obols there, try to get some legendary aspects. That'll probably be your best bet with the reduced drop chances in this beta. But good luck killing a Shava. I think these builds are great. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and do me a favor, click that like button and subscribe for more Diablo 4 content. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.